Snow White, Grimm vs. Disney. The fairest price. Disney's version gives us a sweet princess, 7 quirky minors, a poisoned apple, and a kiss that breaks the spell. In the Brothers Grimm tale, the queen's jealousy is immediate and lethal. She orders a huntsman to kill her stepdaughter and bring back lungs and liver as proof. He spares the girl, and a boar's organs are cooked and served to the queen for dinner, a victory she literally swallows. The queen won't quit after one failure. She uses disguises and domestic props as weapons, laced bodice to choke, a poisoned comb to pierce skin, and finally the apple half that will not forgive a bite. Snow White isn't careless, she's kind, and kindness makes room for danger when the other person is committed to harm. The dwarves guard her but cannot unlearn hospitality fast enough. There is no romantic vigil, there is a glass coffin on a hill, a community frozen by grief. The prince doesn't magically know, he negotiates for the body. When servants lift the coffin, a jolt dislodges the apple from her throat and she wakes. Life returns because of accident, not destiny, which makes the next part sting more. The queen attends the wedding, and justice arrives as red-hot iron shoes forced onto her feet until she dances herself to death. Grimm's lesson isn't a kiss saves, it's that envy devours itself and that appearances, mirrors, cosmetics, sales pitches can be weapons. Disney sells wonder and friendship, Grimm adds a ledger. Snow White survives because other people keep choosing to help and because cruelty overplayed its hand. The ending is brutal because the world doesn't reset, it only marks who learned and who burned. Little Red Riding Hood. Perrault in Grimm. Warnings in a red coat. The film-friendly version gives a clever wolf, a naive girl, and a woodcutter in the nick of time. Charles Perrault's earlier telling ends with no rescue at all. Red is sent alone through the woods, stops to chat, strays from the path, and arrives to the grandmother who asks her to undress and climb into bed. The wolf eats her. Curtain. The moral, beware smooth voices and don't talk to strangers. The Grimm version softens the blow by adding a hunter who cuts open the wolf to save Red and Grandma, then fills the belly with stones. Later variants have Red learning from the first encounter and outwitting a second wolf on her own. Across versions, the red hood is a high-visibility warning sign the story itself carries. Curiosity and courtesy can become doors. The horror is intimate. A bedroom, nightgown, and questions designed to erode judgment.
What big eyes you have, Grandma!
Teeth are not jump scares, they are the end of a conversation that should have stopped earlier. In Perrault, the danger is social grooming. In Grimm, it becomes teachable danger with a second chance, but only because an adult ally arrives with a knife and a plan. Red Riding Hood isn't telling girls to be quiet, it's telling everyone to recognize when politeness becomes risk. Disneyfied spins focus on clever rescue. The older tale insists on boundaries, routes, and rules for walking alone. The ending is brutal when there's no help coming and sobering when there is, because salvation depended on luck and a passerby, not a spell. Hansel and Gretel. Grimm. Hunger, breadcrumbs, and a hot oven. The candy cottage is cute on lunchboxes, but the tale opens with famine and abandonment. A stepmother convinces the woodcutter father to leave the children in the forest because there's not enough food. Hansel drops pebbles, then breadcrumbs to find the way back. Birds erase the second plan, and desperation pushes the pair to a house built from temptation. The walls taste like sugar, which is how traps talk when your stomach is louder than your sense. The old woman inside is not a grandmother, she's a hunter. Kindness turns into a cage, and Gretel is forced to cook while Hansel is fattened for slaughter. The witch tests his growth. He tricks her by extending a bone through the bars. The day she decides to bake, she orders Gretel to check the oven's heat. The little girl plays dumb and asks for a demonstration that requires leaning in. The oven scene is fast, not gory. Gretel shoves the witch in and bolts the door. The House of Sweets becomes a pyre for predation, and the siblings claim jewels to change their fortunes. They find their way home by luck and memory, not magic. When they return, the stepmother is dead, and the repentant father weeps. The story doesn't ask if that absolves him, it pays the kids first with food, safety, and the power to choose their path. This isn't an endorsement of arson, it's a survival manual disguised as a bedtime story. Hunger makes bad plans look reasonable. Fear makes small people ingenious. Disney would sand the edges. Grimm leaves splinters so you remember. The brutality is the premise. Children forced to solve a problem adults created. The hope is the outcome. 2 kids who refused to be dessert and built a future from someone else's trap. Rapunzel. Grimm. Towers, tears, and consequences. The long hair and the line are famous, but the beginning matters. A pregnant woman craves rampion from a witch's garden. Her husband steals it. Payment is their newborn daughter. The witch raises the child and locks her in a tower without a door. Control presented as care. The tower looks safe to outsiders. Inside, it is loneliness dressed as protection. A room where time learns to echo. A prince hears Rapunzel singing and climbs the hair rope. Secret visits turn into promise, and in the Grimm text, into pregnancy revealed when the girl innocently asks why her clothes have grown tight. The witch cuts Rapunzel's hair and casts her into a wilderness. When the prince returns, he climbs the severed braid, meets the witch, falls from the tower, and is blinded by thorns. Each choice carries a price, no spell refunds. Exile and blindness become the bill. Rapunzel gives birth to twins alone. The prince wanders, living by sound. Years pass. Eventually they find each other, and her tears heal his eyes. It isn't a trick, it's a hard mercy after a season that hurt both of them. The witch loses her leverage, but the lovers don't get back the time the tower took. The tale isn't warning against romance, it's warning against cages that call themselves protection. Disney reframes the villain as a stage mom. Grimm frames her as a kidnapper enforcing ignorance. The ending feels earned because love isn't a shortcut, it's work done across exile, shame, and recovery. Towers fail when voices carry, secrets fail when growth becomes visible. Rumpelstiltskin. Grimm. Names, deals, and the firstborn. A miller brags that his daughter can spin straw into gold. The king locks her in a room and demands proof by morning, or else. A strange little man appears, spinning for a price, necklace, ring, and finally the promise of her first child. Terror signs the contract, Dawn delivers riches, a wedding crowns a lie that corners her later when the cradle arrives. When the queen's baby is born, the collector returns. She begs, he grants 3 days to guess his name. Messengers scour the land until one overhears the creature dancing around a fire, chanting his own secret. Tonight, tonight, nobody knows that my name is Rumpelstiltskin. Knowledge, not force, breaks his leverage because his power is privacy, not strength. In many versions, his rage is comic, stomping until he sinks. In the harsher Grimm telling, he plants his foot so deeply it sticks, then he tears himself in two. The picture isn't gore for its own sake, it's a contract exploding. Power here was always paperwork and panic. Expose the clause, and the monster is just a man with bad terms, worse anger management, and no leverage once the name is public. The story isn't anti-ambition, it's anti-false advertising and rulers who exploit desperation. Disney-style retellings add sympathy, Grimm keeps the edges, a father who lies, a king who threatens, and a creature who charges the highest price to the least powerful person in the room. The victory belongs to legwork, listening, and names spoken out loud. The cradle is saved not by muscle but by homework and the courage to say a dangerous name out loud. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. Pay your debts, or lose your future. The town of Hamelin is overrun with rats. A piper in multicolored clothes offers a fix. The mayor promises payment. The music leads the rats to the river to drown. When the piper returns for his fee, the town refuses. Sudden amnesia about promises once the crisis is over. They polish speeches about fiscal responsibility while counting the savings and planning parades. The piper plays again, but not for vermin. Children follow, dancing out of town. In some tellings, he leads them into a mountain that seals, in others to a faraway land. One child with a limp returns too late and becomes the witness. Markets reopen, but the streets are quiet for the worst reason imaginable. The future walked away humming, and no one knows the tune to call them back. There's no blood, only absence that lasts for generations. Anniversaries are marked, doors bear paintings, and the town's calendar keeps its shame. Parents listen for footsteps that never return. The price wasn't money, it was time they'll never get back. A tax paid in birthdays, lessons, and empty chairs around winter tables. This isn't a stranger danger fable, it's a contract fable. Hamelin loses children because leaders treated integrity as optional once they got what they wanted. Disney would give the piper a redemption arc. Folklore keeps the judgment crisp. The brutal takeaway is that communities can steal from problem solvers and call it prudence until the invoice arrives in the most irreplaceable currency. Pay people, keep promises. If a town will not honor work fairly, its stories will honor the loss instead. Bluebeard, Peril, the door you were told not to open. A wealthy nobleman with a frightening beard marries a young woman and gives her keys to every room, with one strict command: do not open a small locked chamber. While he's away, curiosity and dread wrestle. She opens the door because survival sometimes starts with knowing exactly what you're living with and whether escape is still possible. Inside hang the murdered bodies of his previous wives. The floor is slick, the key falls and is stained. No matter how she scrubs, the blood won't wash off, an enchanted proof of disobedience and of his crimes. Bluebeard returns, sees the stain, and schedules her execution, promising to forgive nothing and explain less. The clock starts. She needs allies more than apologies. The heroine requests time to pray and secretly sends for her sister Anne to watch the road for their brothers. Each minute stretches. He raises the sword. Anne calls out from the tower, hooves thunder. The brothers arrive and kill Bluebeard. The closet remains, a permanent exhibit of what his rule was hiding all along, a museum of warnings future brides won't ignore, and a reminder that wealth without witness is a hazard. Perrault's warning is not never be curious. It's believe your fear. The forbidden room isn't a test, it's evidence. Disney-style versions might redeem the husband, the original names him correctly, Predator. The blood-stained key is genius storytelling, guilt that clings to the tool meant to unlock truth. The ending is brutal because the house was a trap disguised as luxury, and survival required disobedience plus allies. Freedom starts with evidence kept. The red shoes. Anderson. Style that won't let you stop. A poor girl receives red shoes and chooses vanity over humility at church. The shoes are beautiful and a little loud, perfect for being seen. When she ignores warnings and keeps wearing them everywhere, the shoes begin to choose her, not the other way around. Attention stops being a mirror and becomes a leash that tightens every time she admires herself in a window. A soldier taps the soles with a charm, and the shoes take control. She dances through doorways and fields, unable to stop. Food doesn't matter, sleep doesn't matter, she begs for help but can't take the shoes off. The punishment fits the sin too well. The approval she wanted becomes a treadmill that won't pause for shame or hunger or prayer. In Anderson's blunt version, she goes to the executioner and asks him to cut off her feet to end the dance. He does, and the red shoes, still wearing her severed feet, keep dancing away through the town. She learns repentance and humility the hardest way, spends her remaining days quietly serving, and dies with peace, finally outweighing spectacle and show. This is not an argument against joy, it's a warning about craving the gaze. Disney would make the shoes quirky, Anderson makes them a parasite. The ending is brutal because the cost is irreversible before mercy arrives. The tale predicts a truth modern platforms confirm. If you let attention set the rhythm, it will dance you to exhaustion and call it success. Better to walk barefoot with purpose than sprint in circles for applause. When applause becomes appetite, it stops being love. The Little Mermaid. Anderson versus Disney. Foam, soul, and the hard choice. Disney crowns romance. Anderson asks for a soul. Merfolk live centuries but become sea foam. Humans die and keep going. After saving a prince, the mermaid wants eternity, not just a wedding. She seeks the sea witch, fully briefed on the price, and decides to pay it because longing that deep refuses polite alternatives and tidy morals. The potion steals her tongue and rewires pain into every step like knives in the feet. She dances for the prince while bleeding in silence. He marries someone else, wrongly believing that woman saved him. At dawn after his wedding, the mermaid will dissolve unless she kills him and lets his blood touch her feet, a loophole that feels like cruelty disguised as mercy from a contract written by the sea. Her sisters arrive with a dagger purchased by their hair, stab him and live. She raises the blade, then throws it into the sea and jumps. Foam replaces flesh. Then the wind lifts her, no body, no voice, but purpose, as a daughter of the air who can earn a soul through 3 centuries of good deeds, shaving years off with every kindness to children who cry. Anderson denies the easy ending to offer a longer one. Love that isn't returned doesn't owe you redemption, sacrifice doesn't obligate fate. Yet mercy toward the unworthy and toward herself opens a third path, growth beyond romance, goodness counted over time. Disney says find your voice, Anderson says use your life. It's brutal because goodness costs and hopeful because goodness counts, even when nobody claps or writes songs about your choice at the shore. It's a different kind of happily ever after. Cinderella, Grimm versus Disney, Doves, Tar, and the Price of Pretend. Disney follows Perrault, Godmother, Pumpkin, Glass Slipper. Grimm's version keeps the ball but grounds the magic. Cinderella plants a tree on her mother's grave. White doves bring dresses when she prays. Her father lives but does nothing while the stepfamily grinds her down, which is its own kind of villainy. The story refuses to excuse or forget. The king holds a 3-night festival. Cinderella sorts lentils from ashes with the bird's help and attends, vanishing each night. On the 3rd, the prince smears tar on the stairs, her golden shoe sticks, a trap for truth. The search begins, more forensic than romantic, and the palace tours the kingdom with a test no lie can pass comfortably, no matter how ambitious the family. The stepmother instructs one daughter to cut off toes, the other a heel, to fit the shoe. Twice the prince rides away with the wrong bride until the doves sing out the blood and turn him back. At the wedding, the birds peck a sister's eye each as a warning. When they persist in false friendship, the other eyes. The justice feels medieval because it is, and because the harm that preceded it was too steady and mean as ash under nails. Grimm's ledger says kindness is not weakness, it's investment, and nature keeps the books. Disney celebrates magic as gift, Grimm celebrates help that arrives because someone kept being decent when nothing changed. The ending is brutal because mercy doesn't veto consequence. The crown fits not because a shoe does, but because her life already did, and because the world finally matched its measure to the girl who had carried grace without applause for so long. Why do these happily ever afters still hit hard? If this short tour made anything clear, it's this: the oldest fairy tales aren't cozy, they're warnings wrapped in wonder. Strip away the songs and sidekicks, and you find the same pressure points over and over. Contracts and consent. Bluebeard's key. Rumpelstiltskin's bargain. The sea witch's price. Read the fine print, and if the rules feel rigged, get witnesses. Names and truth. In these stories, a name is a lockpick. Say the thing out loud, who he is, what it is, and the spell weakens. Silence is the villain's best friend. Attention as a trap. The red shoes isn't about dancing, it's about being seen until you can't stop performing. If the applause sets the rhythm, you're not in control. Politeness versus safety. Little Red learns that manners can open doors wolves walk through. Boundaries are not rudeness, they're survival. Kindness with a spine. Cinderella's birds help because she keeps showing up with decency and boundaries. Kind doesn't mean easy. Disney trims the thorns. The originals leave them on so you remember where not to grab. That's why these endings linger. They don't promise the world will fix itself. They hand you a toolkit. Learn the names, read the contract, trust the shiver in your ribs, and gather allies who will show up when the clock runs out. If you're crafting your own ever after, steal the good parts. A community that believes you, rules that protect the small, and love that's work, not wish. And when a door is labeled "Do Not Open," be honest. Is it a test or evidence you're living in someone else's trap?